Hello guys, and welcome to a new Wargame tutorial today by me, Vulcan. Today I'm going to be looking at the basics of Wargame Airland Battle. I'm going to be basically going through the UI and all of the stuff you need to get you started and into a game in Wargame Airland Battle. So here I am on the login screen. Obviously you want to go ahead and choose a new account if you're extremely new to the game, and obviously make your account. Once you've done so, you can log in with your login and password and just press connect. Should get into the game very soon, unless the servers are down, which isn't very often at all unless they're obviously patching. Now, something that is very different for a lot of people is the UI. Now, as you can see, it's a very open UI. There's a lot of space at the top where there's not actually much going on. You've got your chat on the right side, where people talk in a basically public lobby about anything to do with the game, as well as things outside of the game. Obviously that doesn't happen very often, but if you really want to know anything about the game, make sure you just ask in the chat. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people to help you there. Now, the first thing that catches a lot of people out, you've got your buttons in the bottom left. Now, to start off with, you've got your solo. So this basically takes you to another set of buttons. You have your replays, which basically host all of your games that you have ever played, and they auto-save after every battle. Then you can literally click on them, play, and it will open them up in either a completely new version of the game, if it's like an old replay, or the same version, or it just start like a normal game, and then you can just watch it through. Then you have your saved games, which include your campaigns that you've played through. So here you can see all of my campaign attempts and where it saved them. Then you have the campaign button, which is basically where you choose the campaign you want to play. Now, what I would recommend is that you play the first campaign of Wargame Airland Battle, because it's basically the tutorial campaign. The difficulty is easy. I would recommend keeping it on easy just so you get a taste of the game and then you know what you're doing. These aren't single missions, by the way. They are basically each a campaign which has a decent amount of landscape, which you can then use to advance and so on, and then you have multiple battles in each campaign, and I would say some campaigns you will have over 100 battles. So here we go. You just click on the campaign you want to choose, and then you get your description, your scenario details, and then the balance of power, what you get when, and then when you launch, it will take you into the campaign. Now, the campaign is a dynamic campaign. Every single campaign is dynamic, and basically all you do is you move your little dudes around and they go to sectors, and then when you hit an enemy brigade, you have a battle. That's basically how it works. Now, we're not going to go into that too much, so I'm just going to hit escape here, and we're going to exit out of the campaign. Then, next of all, you have your tutorials. Now, obviously, you want to go through the tutorials. I haven't done them because I'm quite confident since I played Wargame European Escalation, the prequel to Wargame Airland Battle, so I kind of know what I'm doing, so I haven't actually gone through the tutorials, but obviously it's always a good idea to hit the tutorials first on any game that you're new at. Don't be overconfident. Wargame Airland Battle is a very complex game, and you do not want to be overconfident in it at all, otherwise you'll go into a multiplayer game and you will lose. It's as simple as that, unless you're playing at 10v10, in which case it can be 50-50 chance of winning because of the amount of people who are on either side. Either way. Then finally, you've got Skirmish. This is for people who like to play versus AI. You can't invite anyone. It's purely you versus an enemy. So you can add more AI to your own team, and you can add AI to the enemy team. You can change your starting points and your victory points and so on, all the different maps. And you can choose whatever you want, and then you can go and play against a computer just to get some practice, or maybe that's just what you prefer. Maybe you don't like playing online. That's fair enough. But that's how you do it, and then you launch it and you select your deck. These are the default decks down here, the ones with battle group behind them, and then all of these ones up here are my custom decks, which I'll show you later. Now, coming out of the solo place, we've just pressed the back button, and then we come back to the main menu. Then we have multiplayer. Now this is gets a bit more complicated. We've got the normal games list, which is what we are currently on. This is all of the games up to 4v4s, from 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4. Then, if you want to play any 10v10s, you have to click the button next to the games list on the bottom left, which says 10 versus 10, and then it will bring you up every lobby with 10v10 games. Now, the best way to figure out whether or not there is a game you can join is to click hide running. It will basically hide any game that is currently running, and then you click the players tab once, sorry, and then it will bring you to the top where you will see the room with the most people in. Obviously this one's only got one person in, but you would join it, and then you will see that there's actually more than one person in there because it hadn't since refreshed, and now everyone's waiting for a game. I'm obviously going to leave because I don't want to play a game right now, but I'm just showing you guys around, and you can see now since I've left we've got Wellington, the game Wellington, with 9 out of 20 players ready to go. So we've also got an online campaign button. This is where you click the campaign you want to play, and then you invite a player to play with you. So this is basically a way in which you can do a versus campaign. This isn't a campaign whereby you this isn't a campaign in which you play with your friend, you play against your friend, so they take the enemy side. The way it works is that if you want to play the alliance that is written here, you make the game. If you want to play the opposite alliance, you get your friend to make the game and then invite you. That's the way to do it. And these can be very interesting. I haven't actually had a chance to try them out yet, but it sounds like an interesting concept versus campaigns, similar to Shogun 2 Total War, if any of you guys have tried that out. Now, we also have a new, you can create your own multiplayer room by clicking the create button. This will basically make a room for any of the games in the games list, which are named by the players who made them. So obviously here you can type it, you can make a 1 versus 1, and then here it's called Vulcan's Game. I can change that to 1v1 if I wish, and then people will know it's a 1v1. And then I will change it to private for now, just to demonstrate some of the options that you have. Then you can open as many slots as you like, so it doesn't assume, if you've decided that you want a 1v1 and then suddenly decide you want a 2v2, it doesn't matter so much unless you've named the lobby 2v or 1v1. But you can open as many slots as you want, you can have as many players as you want in the game. So here you can see I've got 4 slots open, so now it's technically a 2v2. You can also have a 1v3 and so on, which is quite interesting. I swear this was supposed to be private. Oh, somebody's joined who's in my friends list. Anyway, never mind. People in your friends list can join your game. We've got the battlefields up here. This is all of the battlefields that you can pick for the particular mode that you have running. So here you can see every map that can either accommodate 1v1 or 2 versus 2. And this will allow you to basically pick from any of these maps. There is a lot of maps. If I change it to 3v3, then you will see that we will get even access to even more maps, which, well, maybe not more maps, but different maps. They are all different. So here you can see we get access to a lot of the 3v3 and 4v4 maps. If we go even bigger and add even more people, we can get all of the 4v4 maps, which are basically either 3v3 or 4v4. And then if I remove them all, so if I basically close all of the slots, that felt really bad. Sorry to Terzian, but hopefully he will notice that I have made this video later. And then we have access to all the 1v1 maps, which may be not 2 versus 2 as well. So there you go. And you can also change the starting points. To get higher victory points, you need to change your starting points to higher. So you can change it to 2,000, and then you can choose between 3,000 and 4,000 victory points. Change it to 3,000, you can change it to 4,000 or 6,000 victory points, and so on. You can do 4,000, and then it's 6,000 and 8,000, or total destruction. Total destruction basically means that you need to destroy every single enemy CV on the entire map, or every single unit, and make sure that they have no points left at which they can reinforce. Then you have a time limit. Obviously you can go from anywhere from 10 minutes to 60 minutes, or you can have no time limit at all. That's completely up to you. Then you have 3 different opposition game modes. You have confrontation, which is NATO versus pact, NATO, which is NATO versus NATO, and pact, which is pact versus pact. And then you can have game modes. Destruction is basically, as you can see here, each unit destroys earns you as much points as its deployment costs. The first team to reach the score limit or the highest score at the end of the set time wins. Then you have siege. One team has a lot of income but no direct reinforcement zone, while the other team is surrounding them with the deployment capability but weaker income. Victory conditions are the same as the destruction mode. Basically, whoever has the most points after the time limit wins, or whoever kills who first wins. Then you've got economy mode, which is a kind of weird, it's a very strange game mode, but very interesting. As deployment points increase when you control command zones, the first team to reach the target score wins. Now, the target score decreases within time. Basically, you have to save up your points, but you can also spend those points so that will reduce your score. Now, it's kind of interesting because you have to balance between power and the ability to get to the score limit quicker. So that's a very interesting one to play if you're interested in those kind of game modes. But yeah, that's about it for a game setup for multiplayer. And then obviously, if you have set it private originally, make sure you click the button in the bottom left which says change to public. You can also press the invite button and invite any of your friends to the game. And that's about it for the multiplayer. Then you also have ranked games, which are basically games which are ranked, and they give you a elo, which is kind of representative of your rank. So basically, if you play lots of ranked games and you win loads of ranked games, you go higher in the ranking and you get given a lieutenant thing or whatever, and you become higher in the leaderboard, which shows how many people have won and lost in ranked games. Obviously, it's completely up to you if you want to do this. I haven't actually played any ranked games properly yet. You can see here, all of these people on here have played plenty of games. You got some people with 44 victories and 7 defeats. Very good people play this game. So do be careful, but basically not many people queue for rank, so you may be waiting for a game for a while. Either way, you also have saved games. These include your online campaigns only, I believe, and then you also have a replay button in the multiplayer tab as well if you want to look at any of those replays. So moving on, we have the deck button. Now this brings you to all of the decks you can create. You create a deck by clicking the create button, then you go to your faction and you choose either NATO or Pact, then you name your deck and then you create your deck. But before you click that, I would recommend you go select bonus, because this is a very interesting feature in Wargame Airland Battle that wasn't in Wargame European Escalation. So you have your national deck. This is where you pick a deck that is specific to a nation. So, for example, if you picked a US deck, you would only be able to use US units, but you do get access to their prototypes, which is very, very useful, and that goes the same for any of the nations you pick. Now, the plus activation points that you get depends on which nation you use, because some nations are more powerful than others, therefore they don't want to give you too much of a bonus. Now, a type of deck includes motorized, armored, air assault, marine, mechanized, and para. I believe there are only 6 different types, I believe, and those are all of them. Some nations don't have access to all of them. For example, the minor nations like Denmark only have 3 choices, but basically these extra choices of type give you extra bonuses. For example, an armored deck gives you +1 XP for units of type tank. All units of type tank cost -1 activation points, which is very, very useful. Now, just a tip for you guys getting started at this game, armored decks are probably the easiest to play at the beginning. They are very easy to use and very easy to make. Now, error. Now, this isn't something I would use until you get a bit more advanced at the game, but basically you can choose to limit yourself to units before a certain time period, for example before 1975 or before 1980, and that basically depends on what units you are given availability to. And then if you do handicap yourself like that, then you do get bonus to, or basically 80 or 40% availability for extra units, which can be extremely useful. So, for example, I have a Russian deck, my Russian 2 deck. This is a national deck for the URSS, which is basically Russia. It is of type motorized, and I have the era of category C, which is before 1975. And the reason for this is because I want to use a lot of jets, which come from the era before 1975, which include the MiG-21Ss. Now, these are spammable cluster bomb aircraft, which are extremely effective in 1v1s and 10v10s. At least that's what I have figured so far. So that's if you want to have a look at that deck, please pause it and feel free to copy it. As you can see, it's basically a Russian motorized category C era deck. So feel free to copy that if you like. Now, I obviously have lots of different decks here, including a Danish deck, British deck, American deck. I'll just show you my American 1 deck. This is a US armored deck, one that I would recommend a lot of you use. I haven't exactly got round to using this too much, and it doesn't maybe look like there's much on the field here, but it's extremely effective in a 1v1, and I did show this off in a previous video, so feel free to go back and have a look. It was on the map Goal, I believe, so feel free to go and have a look. But that's basically the deck and the deck creation, so hopefully that's helpful. And then finally we have the armory. This is basically the place where you can scout out and look at all of the different units in the entire game. You've got logistics, infantry, support, tanks, recon vehicles, helicopters and planes. Now you can just basically scroll through all of these guys and pick one and then look at it. You can zoom in, you can go around it, and you can zoom out again. And also some of the ground vehicles you can even move. For example, if I pick up these infantry, I can tell them to run around. Basically all you have to do is click on them and they will run where you tell them to. It's actually quite hilarious. I can also select the truck and tell the truck to run them over. Oh, he didn't quite want to apparently. Either way, you can do it for all sorts of vehicles, basically any vehicle that isn't an air vehicle, because obviously you don't want a helicopter flying around in a hangar. That probably wouldn't end well. So yeah, you can look around all of the different ones. You can also turn off nations so that they don't display units from, for example, the US. You can also select just packed units by deselecting the NATO units, or you can turn the NATO units back on and turn off the packed units, and then it'll only show you NATO units. And basically you can browse through all the different units you want and then figure out which ones you want to add to your deck. Now, unfortunately, I haven't exactly got round to finding out which are overpowered units and which units you are recommended just yet, so I can't really give you any recommendations of where to start. What I would recommend though is that you do just have a brief look through every single unit. And I know it sounds very tedious, but for anyone who plays strategy games, surely that shouldn't be a problem. Either way, that's the armory, and it's a very, very cool thing. Unfortunately, I don't think it's as good as the previous armory in Wargame European Escalation, because the statistics on the right side are pretty hard to read for those of you who aren't used to it. And I didn't think that that was such a good thing. Either way, there's an ice cream truck outside. Yay! Right, let's quit out of the armory, and we shall go to another thing I want to show you today, which is the profile. Now, there's a lot of things to do here. You can get to the profile two ways. You can either click on it from the main menu, or you can click on the button at the bottom where it says go to your profile. And basically here you can add friends, so you can click new friend. You can type in Vulcan, for example, and that will add me. Obviously I can't add myself, so I'm not going to. And also you can click on people and click view profile, and it will come up with all of their statistics and everything about them. So for example, I'm sure Gen Jeff wouldn't mind considering he said hi. So we're going to view his profile. We can see he's player level 14, which is actually double mine. He's got campaign XP of 1928, skirmish XP of 294, and so on. You can see he's played a total of 85 hours and 10 minutes, which is a very long time, compared to me. If we look at my statistics, which we can find by clicking on stats, you can see I've only played 15 hours and 15 minutes of multiplayer games so far, but apparently a total of 248 hours and 43 minutes in the menus, which is very interesting, and a lot of that is probably because I stare at the armory for a very long time, and a lot of people don't realise this. I literally sit in the game, and what do? I stare at the armory, and I go through every single unit and find the best units. Unfortunately, as I said, I haven't quite got around to getting all the recommendations down for all of the tutorials that will follow up this one, but hopefully you guys will take a look. Anyway, there's another thing that I want to show, which is really cool, and a really cool thing about Wargame in general. You can change your name. Now, there's not actually many games that can do this, and basically you just click nickname, and then you can change your nickname to, for example, VulcanHDGaming, and everyone on my friends list and everyone in the game will see me as VulcanHDGaming. Obviously, I'm now going to change that back because I want to keep myself as Vulcan, and basically that makes it easier for people to add me. And obviously here we have our options. Options are basically dependent on what you want to do with your game. You have different things like sticky selection, automatic firearm buildings. I tend to have that off. Mousetrap, I'm not even sure what that is, but I leave it on. And I've got the mouse border scroll. This is by default off, so I would recommend you turn it on, because a lot of strategy players like to go to the edge of their screen, for example in like Age of Empires, to move their screen around, and it's very useful. Of course, you also have your controls, which are all your key bindings. You have the audio settings, and the credits if you want to see who made the game, and of course the interface. Now, this is another thing that's probably worth mentioning, just as a final point. We've got the label styles. Now, you want to keep it really icons type as RTS, unless you are a military buff, in which case you can put them as NATO, and all of the icons will simulate the real life NATO icons that they use in real life. But the biggest thing is the label style, which is basically you can have the Airland Battle one, which is the default, or you can have the European Escalation one, which is what I use. The European Escalation one I think is a lot clearer. It basically has the unit name as a label instead of a symbol, like a tank, for example, which doesn't tell you exactly what the unit is unless you click on it, which is kind of frustrating sometimes. The only thing that with the European Escalation one is that when there's a lot of units on the field, it can get a bit clustery, so be careful with that. If you're just getting into the game, you've just found Airland Battle, you don't know anything about European Escalation, I would recommend keeping it on the default of Airland Battle. If you are from European Escalation and you are just going to get Airland Battle, then honestly I would recommend you change it to European Escalation, because I got so confused originally. Obviously you also have all of this other stuff, including the HUD size, the minimap size. It's all personal preference. So basically that's that. I haven't yet left my lobby, so I'm going to do that, which is basically when you're in a lobby, you have this center button here which will say return to lobby or leave lobby and so on, and you can navigate that way. So here we are back on the main menu after all that, and we have three buttons on the right side here. We've got the add friend button, which basically I believe you can click on someone and you can click add friend, I think. It says send a friend request to selected users in your recent contacts. Okay, so that basically means after you've been playing a game with someone, there will be a menu on the right side here with all of the recent contacts, basically all of the people who played your previous game, and you can click on them and you can click the add friend button. You can also open and close the chat on the right side by clicking this green button over here, and on the right side you can clear the chat by pressing the red button. Furthermore, you can change your lobby on which you speak by clicking at the top above the friends online, and basically you can do so by clicking on either Wargame. If I click on the Wargame DE, it will tell me I'm now talking in the Wargame DE chat. If I go into multiplayer and I join a random 10v10 game, it will tell me that I'm talking in number 21 Napoleon NATO's lobby chat. And you can change on the bottom right here if you want to talk in different lobbies while you're in a certain lobby, which can be very useful. So there you go, guys. I hope that's a nice simple introduction to Wargame Airland Battle and the UI and all of everything to get you into a game. I will do gameplay mechanics in the future, and all of the armory tutorials that I did for Wargame European Escalation will be coming next week sometime, so look forward to them. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. I hope that this was useful, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.